Well, greetings vinyl community and welcome to my 2021 vinyl tag video. I'm going to attempt to barrel through this as quickly as possible with a minimum of waffling, but the way things go, do have your maple syrup handy. And it's kind of traditional to start by calling attention to a newer channel or two, and I want to give a shout out to a very new channel. I think it's only been up for a couple of weeks. I just discovered a young woman in England, and the channel is Neve the Prog Nerd. Neve, I think, is an Irish name. It's not spelled the way you'd expect, so see the link in the description. As the channel name suggests, she's very much into prog rock, and it's really cool to see a young person that enthusiastic about classic prog. Okay, first question in the vinyl tag is a discovery from 2020, and I'm going to show Sudan Archive. And for more information on Sudan Archive, do check out Miss Lady Soul's channel. She just posted a whole video dedicated to Sudan, and that's a new release from this year, or 2019, or this year. I think it was this year. Doesn't say. Waffling already. Second question, Quarantine By. I think the first album that I bought once the lockdown was first announced in March was this reissue of UFO by krautrock band Guru Guru. This is a reissue on Play Loud on red vinyl. The next question is, what do I want to find this year? And I think my answer to that is the same as it's been before in the last vinyl tag. There must have been a similar question because I'm still hoping to find someday an OG of Out to Lunch or an OG of In a Silent Way. These are reissues, of course, but and they are modern reissues to boot. But these are two of my real holy jazz albums that I really need to have the genuine item. And certainly in the case of Out to Lunch, the OGs are very expensive, so out of my range, but I'm hoping that someday there'll be a way. Next question is a box set. Okay, this is a very thick box set dedicated to just one album. This is one of my all-time favorite albums, Sight by Tangerine Dream. This box contains a blue vinyl copy of the album, a CD of the album with a second disc dedicated to a concert from the period, a nice little book, and a set of postcards. Next question, a concept album. The Italian progressive band Le Orme, or The Footprints, made this album Felona and Sorona, originally released in Italy under the title Felona e Sorona. This is a British copy with English lyrics written by Peter Hamill. So this does exist in both Italian language and English language versions. This is a concept album about two planets, one of which is happy and light, and the other is dark and shadowy and cursed, and the fates of these two planets. Excuse me. The next question is an album that signaled a change of direction for an artist. And this is the first album by Eric Burdon and the Animals. This is a transition between the original blues rock based Animals and the psychedelic Eric Burdon and the Animals. This is really a transitional album. It's really a solo album by Eric Burdon. And he's going a bit Hollywood, a bit Tom Jones, a bit into the orchestrated pop singer not songwriter, because he doesn't write any of the material here, but he does a lot of Randy Newman songs. It's got Mama Told Me Not to Come, it's got I Think It's Going to Rain Today, and the hit on this album is Help Me Girl. Okay, the next question is a white label promo album, and I'm showing the Mothers of Invention, Frank Zappa, Fillmore East, June 1971, and there's the radio station sticker info, and here is the bizarre label inner sleeve, and here is the white label in question. Now, it is questionable how much radio airplay this album got because the lyrics on it are really filthy on many of the tracks. And I did hear this album on the radio when it was first released, but it was on an FM station that was able to play that kind of material without repercussions. When I bought the album and brought it home, my bedroom at home was being, the house was being remodeled, and I didn't have a door on my bedroom. It hadn't been hung. I think the door was there, but it was loose. So I remember bringing that album home and playing it very softly so my mom wouldn't hear the words. The next question is a compilation album. This is a sampler that was available in stores for the grand sum of 99 cents. Bought this at a Tower Records back then. The Greater Antilles Sampler. This is from the Antilles label. And it's just a wonderful listen in its own right. A great selection of stuff. A lot of it is very experimental and progressive. It's got Quiet Sun. It's got Fripp and Eno. It's got White Noise, the early synthesizer outfit. It's got a sample from the album that Steve Winwood did with African musicians. It's got Don Cherry. And then it also has a fair amount of British folk. It starts off with Nick Drake. It has the Albion Country Band, Gay and Terry Woods. Great, great album. An album that you have a story about. Not really much of a story, but I was a huge fan of Emerson, Lake and Palmer in the early 70s, and hadn't really heard hadn't heard The Nice until around 72, I think. And when I heard a couple of cuts on the radio separately, I heard their extended live performance of She Belongs to Me from the third album, and the amazing song For Example from their third album, self-titled Nice. I was blown away by those. Actually, the album in America was titled Everything is Nice as Mother Makes It, and there was some kind of weird legal battle about the rights to the immediate label distribution in America, so there were apparently two competing releases of the album. So it was in some kind of weird legal situation. Well, by 1972, because this was several years after the album had come out in 1969, it was not an easy thing to find. So the first album by The Nice I was actually able to get was the Five Bridges album, which came after this one. Great album, and really, made me firmly a fan of the band. I tried special ordering through various stores to get Everything is Nice as Mother Makes It and could not get a hold of it. One store said they'd gotten it for me, and what they actually got was the final album, Elegy. And I remember calling into that same FM radio station, the underground rock station that played the Mothers of Invention filthy stuff on the radio, and saying, hey, play something by The Nice. And they played something from the first album, which I hadn't heard yet, so that was cool. And I was able to find a copy of that. When Jethro Tull's Living in the Past came out and was only available as an import when it first was released, I went to the store to get it and found, oh my God, there's a Nice album I don't have. It was the second album, Ars Longa Vita Brevis. So I bought that and had to wait until the next time to get the Jethro Tull. And glad I did, because it was not easy to get that Nice album as well. So the story is that I ended up getting every single other Nice album before I finally found the one I wanted in a bargain bin at the Warehouse record store. And this is a reissue on Columbia Special Products, Columbia being one of the parties in that tug of war over rights to the band's catalog. So I hope you're pouring your maple syrup, because that was definitely Waffle. An album that needs a release on vinyl. Here's Frank Zappa again, not for the last time in this tag. Civilization Phase 3. This was the first posthumous release of Frank Zappa, and it's absolutely a masterpiece, one of his greatest, a towering work. It's his magnum opus on the synclavier, the then state-of-the-art digital synthesizer that he was producing stuff that nowadays we can probably produce with a $50 app on an iPhone. But at the time, it was colossal, and the music that he made on it is extraordinary. And they went all out with the packaging of this posthumous release. It's just really beautiful. The nice booklet here with little sheets to protect the artwork, transparencies, great stuff. This just begs for a 12-inch release. The next question is a common and an uncommon album. So I'm not sure how the original vinyl tag didn't, but I've seen others who are linking the two, so I'm going to do the same. Common album, Aqualung by Jethro Tull, an album that I still love and can still listen to, even though it's been dreadfully overexposed over the years. This is an original UK pressing on the Chrysalis label, but with an island catalog number. And for an uncommon album, this is a bootleg Jethro Tull album from their 1972 tour titled Ticketron. And I just love that cover art. That's really bizarre, nothing to do with Jethro Tull, but cool thing on the Trademark of Quality label. I picked that up at a dingy little used record store in downtown San Diego, where I used to spend many an hour in the 70s. And I think I told a story about that, I think, in my very first Vinyl Community video. And it was a store that was once haunted by Frank Zappa in his teenage years. The next question is an EP. So I'm going to show the self-titled EP by the Bangles. This is their pre-first album material, and it includes, I think, their very best song, The Real World, which is a really nice, jangly, psychedelic, kind of Paisley Underground was the movement that was happening at the time, sound. And this is the earlier lineup of the Bangles with Annette Zelinskas on bass before Michael Steele joined. And that could also fit the next question, which is a girl group. But I'm going to show a girl groupie group, the GTOs, another Frank Zappa connection. This is on Zappa's Straight label. And one of the GTOs was Pamela DeBar, as she became known, Miss Pamela. Pamela DeBar being the author of the very entertaining rock music tell-all, I'm With the Band. Okay, the next question is an album cover that you love, and I'm going to show the first album by a great British band, Rare Bird. Album artwork by Robert Logrippo. Wonderful sort of cracked varnish effect and interesting antique approach. The band itself is interesting for not having a guitarist. It's two keyboardists, Dave Caffinetti on electric piano. Dave Caffinetti also played Viv Savage in This Is Spinal Tap. Graham Field on organ, Steve Gould on fantastic vocals and bass, and Mark Ashton on drums. Great sort of proto-prog album. The original British version has a completely different cover, which I don't care for very much at all. It just looks like a sort of old blacklight poster and is really rather crudely done. This is just so much better. And one of my favorite album covers of all. An album that you've listened to the most. I don't know what album I've listened to the most, but certainly I've spent many hours listening to the first album by the Mothers of Invention, Freak Out. And I do have a Halloween ritual. This album has to be played every Halloween evening. And I've been doing that for many years. I think it was Halloween when I first bought this album. This is the original copy I bought in 1970. So that album's been played a lot. Not necessarily that copy. I've had a lot of different copies over the years, but I do still have that first one. It's not a first pressing, although it is an early pressing. I have a first pressing of the mono edition. Mono edition being, okay, this is really waffling, but the mono edition is distinguished by opening side 3 with a drum beat that doesn't appear on the stereo mix. You just needed to know that, didn't you? An album you had to get an OG of. Well, I said earlier in the video that I had to find someday OGs of the sacred jazz albums by Eric Dolphy and Miles Davis. Well, another that goes in this category is one that I succeeded in this year, Pharoah Sanders' Karma. And I already showed this in an earlier video, but very proud to have gotten an original pressing of this holy classic. Last album purchased. Well, there are a lot because I just went to the record store yesterday and picked up a number of cheap items. The most extraordinary was this one, Fifth Dimension by the Byrds. This is an original pressing with the Columbia 2i label, and it was in the 49-cent bin. I thought, how can this be in the 49-cent bin? This is an original pressing. It's got to be a collectible. So I pulled out the disc and looked at it, and oh, there were two big, gnarly scuffs on side 2, one of them extending almost all the way across the grooves. I thought, well, you know what? Even if it's not playable, the cover is worth 49 cents. So I put that in my stack. Got it home, washed it, put it on. It plays fine. So, real bargain there. Got a bunch of, this was also in the 49-cent bin. Second album by Joe Cocker. Includes Hitchcock Railway, great favorite, and his version of Darling Be Home Soon, which is a song that really brings me to tears, whether it's by Joe Cocker or by Lovin' Spoonful. Does Dylan, he does Leonard Cohen, he does a couple of Beatles songs, both She Came In Through the Bathroom Window and Something, both from Abbey Road, which was brand new, and in fact, George Harrison offered Something to him before the Beatles recorded it, but the Beatles did manage to sneak their version out first. An original pressing of Crosby, Stills and Nash. This is an album that, well, the clerk, I shouldn't say the clerk, the store owner told me, don't you already have that album? I said, well, I used to. I got this album for Christmas in 1969, and I think my copy had this same gold record sticker on it. So, finally got another copy of that one. John Renborn, The Black Balloon, great guitar playing from this acoustic guitar master. joined by Tony Roberts on flute on some tracks, but it's mostly just guitar. It's from 1979. I did see John Renborn in concert with Tony Roberts, together with Jackie McShee, also from Pentangle, of course. So that was a wonderful show. Also from the 49-cent bin, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, his final album, released in 1978. His last album recorded and released posthumously. Liner notes by his widow Dorthan Kirk. Boogie Woogie String Along for Real. Mahavishnu Orchestra's first album, The Inner Mounting Flame. The Moog Strikes Back, Moog Strikes Bach. This is one of those Moog-sploitation albums, as I call them, that proliferated in the wake of Switched on Bach's breakthrough success. This is from 1969, so it was one of those, hey, this Walter Carlos guy is selling records. Let's get our hands on the Moog synthesizer and play some classical music or play some top 40 music or whatever. So that was a long answer to the last purchase. There's one more that I'll save for the end. Album they don't get. I guess that just means an album that's underrated. And I'll choose the 1978 release by Yes, Tormato. This is really denigrated a lot in Yes fandom, but I think it's a very underrated album. Certainly not one of their very best, but pretty solid. And I think certainly superior to anything that came later. That certainly includes any album where John Anderson is not the singer. To me, that's having a Yes without John Anderson is like having the Rolling Stones without Mick Jagger. It's just not the same band. A punk album. Not everyone would even agree that this is a punk band, but they certainly came in on that wave, and they had tons and tons of punk attitude. The Stranglers. This is their third album, Black and White, and this is the original U.S. pressing on black and white marbled vinyl. And finally, favorite reissue from 2020. Now this is brand new. I bought this at the record store yesterday. Haven't even opened it yet, but I'm confident that this is my choice. Herbie Hancock Trio. The record store day release of this album, previously on vinyl only in Japan. And this is a great set, including, besides Hancock's work, some marvelous bass playing from Ron Carter. So that's it. Steve Carlson advised me that my channel needed to have a cuddly animal, or else I wouldn't get any views. So I told him I'd rent a hamster, but I looked into that, and renting a hamster, the prices were just exorbitant. So I got Piglet here. I hope you enjoyed him. Thank you. Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.